how do you prepare for a keynote speech? What I'm going to do today is something pretty fascinating. I'm going to be looking into how I prepared for my speech at HSBC in China, show you snippets of that, and show you the structure that I went through in order to prepare for a speech in front of 200 to 300 people. There are 3 stages that I went through in order to prepare for the speech. The first stage is stage 1, which is preparation. Now, the first step is you must understand what the organization wants, whether it's a corporation, whether you're working with a school, a university, a very large corporate, whatever it is, you must know exactly what they want. You need to get the details of what size of PowerPoint, how long you're speaking for, do you have mics, do they have audio equipment, where will you be in the presentation, are you first, are you last? What other content is being spoken about at that day? If you can clarify all of those things and understand what your role is, you're going to better understand how you can best serve them to get the outcome that they're looking for so that they love you and invite you back again. So I've now got the facilitation notes and the PowerPoint. So I know the size of the PowerPoint, I've got the facilitation notes. So now I need to start creating the structure for my speech. Number 2 is create a clear structure for your speech. It's incredibly important that you think about what is my overall structure. Let me have a general overview to get the gist of it and then make some notes so that you have complete clarity on the initial milestones that you want to hit in your speech that delivers the outcome that the audience is looking for.
Okay, I've got the structure in place. Let's make it happen.
So what I've done is I've split the speech into 4 main parts. So the parts include number 1 is personal resilience. Then I've got keep an open mind, I've got mastering emotions, and team collaboration. So the reason that I've done this is it gives me an idea of the outcome that I'm looking for, as well as how can I best serve the audience through the stories that I'm sharing so that I can better serve them to a higher level and they get the outcome they're looking for. Step 3 is create an emotional roller coaster. Let me explain what I mean by this. When most people think of a keynote, they think of their content. Instead, what I want you to think about is how do you brainstorm stories and emotions that you want the audience to experience so that they really remember you and you have a huge impact on them. So what I usually do at this stage is I get creative. I get a pen and paper and I start thinking about all the stories, all the metaphors, all the different exercises that I could do at different parts of my speech. And by doing a brainstorm like that, it helps you think creatively and you can start to see visually where you would put different elements in. So it's taken a while, but now I pretty much have what I need. These are stories, examples, things to think about. So what I really recommend you do is you focus on being creative, brainstorm, and think in general terms at this stage. We just want to get a broad overview, a structure, and now I'm going to go into detail. So now the whole brainstorm is done, I'm going to go into detail. I'm going to write everything out, I'm going to get it pretty clear, and I'm just going to get that exact structure even neater and in even more detail. After you have established your emotions and the emotional roller coaster, then you need to go into detail. Type up as much as you can. I think you should get into all the detail that you possibly can, all the different elements of the speech, get that detailed overview so that you are now very, very aware of all the different elements that you have in as much detail as possible. The more detail that you do at this point, the better. However, do not get overwhelmed with the details, just tap away and write down as much as you can. So the content is now pretty much done. I've got the detailed overview. Now that I've got the detailed overview, I'm going to start to make a very brief PowerPoint. I'm going to run through it. I'm going to check the timings and make sure that it's looking good.
As you can see, these were the slides, and this is my brainstorm. So what I'm doing here is I'm just thinking about how can I brainstorm some of the most important things.
Okay, so I went through a few different elements there. Let me explain. All you're going to do now is move on to step 5, which is create the PowerPoint. Now, once you've created the PowerPoint, you are done with stage 1. So stage 1 is you are just prepping everything, you're thinking about it. Now, after you've done all those 5 things, you're then going to move on to a practice run. You are just going to practice the speech all the way through. After that brainstorm, I then have the basic PowerPoint. Now what I want to do is work out how do I deliver this in a way that is more congruent and flows better in a way that will really inspire the audience. So what I do is I do something called fast speaker training. And basically, I go through the entire speech without saying anything, just thinking about it in my head to see if it flows. And now, after I've done that, which I've just done, I redo it. And I redo the PowerPoint to make it easier to flow. So what you're going to do is you're going to practice. Now, there's a few ways you can practice. For myself, I do this sort of speed training where I go through it in my head or I think about it whilst I'm going through the PowerPoint, and I click through and I don't really say anything. I just mime and I imagine what I'm going to do. For some people, you may want to do the entire speech all out and check the timing of it that way. There's different ways to do it. Ultimately, you'll find out what works best. I recommend when you first start, at this point in time, after you've done stage one, to do the entire speech and record it. Just go all out, imagine you're there and do the whole thing. Now, by doing that, you can check the timing, which is one of the key elements of stage two, which is number one, right? You must check the timing. And then once you've checked the timing, you then want to move on to the second part of stage two, which is making sure that it flows, right? It's got to flow in a way where the speech makes sense. Sometimes when we're brainstorming, we've got all these different elements in different places. You want to have that structure and make sure that it flows through. So you're going to be doing that through practicing the speech maybe once, maybe twice. And then after you've done that, you move on to stage three. And stage three is where you redo the PowerPoint and you redo the presentation to now match what you believe is going to be the next amazing thing and how to deliver your content in the best way.
So now, as you can see, it looks a little bit better. It looks nice and easy. It's very simple and it'll help with the end goal.
So as you can see, there aren't many words. Generally speaking, when I think about doing a keynote speech and I think about impacting people, what I want to do is I want the slides to aid what I'm saying, and that's it. And it's for the audience. It's so that they can better understand everything. So often I use visuals to keep them engaged. When I first started speaking, one of the things that I used to do is to have the slides to cue what I'm saying. Although that's still true now, to some extent, it's very important that your slides are not there to remind you what to say, but instead they're as an aid to what you're saying. So this is where you're going to keep doing stage two. You're going to keep going through your presentation, giving it a go, checking the timing, checking the speech flow, and then redoing it. This is a cycle that you do. When you are happy that you are ready to rock and roll, then you add in the last element. And this is step 4, which is adding in the extras, the extra inspiration. This could be an exercise, this could be music, this could be a prop. But you add in extras after you really understand everything so that you don't waste time thinking about the details to begin with when we just want to get the core speech flow right and then add on those bells and whistles after. So I've just been practicing my speech. I'm wearing 4 layers because it's so cold in China. And basically what I did is 2 things. So the first thing was a run through. So I checked the timings, made sure it ran through nicely, and then also checked it with the slides. So now I've pretty much finalized everything. I'll run through it maybe once or twice more before the actual event tomorrow. And I'm hoping it's going to have a huge impact. Now we're moving on to stage 3, which is inspire. This is where we are adding in the most important elements of your speech, which is your body language and your tone of voice. So the key things to think about here is what body language are you having at different stages? And I mentioned, you want to think about if you're holding a mic. Where are you going to be using your body language if you're holding a mic and you have a clicker? It's actually something you've got to think about, because if you're practicing your stories without and you've got all your body movements, you've got to think about how that works if you're holding a mic and if you have a clicker at the same time. Now for some of you, you may have a headset, which is cool, and you'll probably have a clicker in one hand. If you don't have a PowerPoint, you'll have both of your hands free. So once again, this is a very, very key element and the first thing that you must do when we look into stage 3 of Inspire. The last thing that I did, which I think is pretty interesting, is understanding the body language if I have a mic, because I'm not sure if I've got a mic or if I've got a headset. So what I did is for the stories that I have to tell, I am working out how to use the body language if I have a microphone and if I don't, so that I can play the characters needed in the stories in order to have a bigger impact. Okay, so this is something that I do called a speed run through. A speed run through is I go as fast as I can, doing all the body language, understanding the key things I need to hit. I don't really speak, but it helps me to do everything I need to do very quickly, so I get used to the routine of the speech. Really, really important. The speed run through is probably one of my favorite things. The reason why this is the case is it allows me to practice my body language. And as you can see, there's a variety of different body language that I'm doing. I'm thinking about my facial expressions, I'm thinking of my hands, I'm thinking where the mic is, and I'm doing different things to allow me to have a bigger impact on the audience. So after doing my speed run through, it took 6 minutes. And now I know exactly how it goes. I've remembered one other thing that I need to do in my speech. The key thing is practicing the body language for the stories. And now I'm ready to rock and roll. The last element of Inspire, after you've gone through your body language, you've done a speed run through, is practice, practice, practice. You've got to practice your speech. There are so many people that say, Ben, how do you do it? Because I practice in all different locations, in different places, continually. The more you practice your stories, your body language, the better you will be on stage. It's really, really important at this point in time that you think about what can I practice, what can I do on a consistent basis, so that you are really, really prepared for this keynote and you can really rock the stage. So let's have a quick recap so you can think for yourself. If you're preparing for a keynote, what are the key elements you've got to go through? First thing, stage 1, preparation. Number 1, understand what they want. Number 2, create a clear speech structure. Number 3 is to create the emotional roller coaster. What is the roller coaster that you're going to take them on emotionally? Number 4, you want to create the detail to your speech. Create all the detail and make sure you understand it, and then you create the PowerPoint. After that, you've gone through stage 1, then you do your first full practice. It can be a speed run through, it can just be a practice where you go from end to beginning and you do the practice and it is great. You've got to do that practice after this first stage 1. Stage 2 is flow. Now in this stage, you're going to be checking the timing of your speech. That's the first thing, very important. Number 2, you're going to be checking that the speech flows, that it makes sense. Number 3 is you're going to redo the presentation, redo the PowerPoint. Think about how can I redo this? Then you do it again. And you keep going through these steps, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Once you're done, then you add in the extra inspiration. This could be adding in the music or the props or other elements to really bring your speech to life. After you do that, you then practice it again. After the practice at the end of stage 2, you then move on to stage 3, which is inspire. Here we are doing number 1, which is checking your body language. Make sure that your body language is aligned with what you are saying. Also, think about that tone of voice as well. It's a really key element that most people miss. Number 2 is to do a speed run through. Once again, run through it, run through it. And the reason this is so important is so you get used to the speech, you get used to the flow. And then practice, practice, practice. Practice your stories, practice your metaphors, practice the key elements, and make sure that you practice with the PowerPoint so that you aren't continually looking up at the PowerPoint, but instead using it to aid the audience in what they're going through as they experience your speech. Treat this as a checklist, make it happen, make sure to use these elements, and I have no doubt you will create a phenomenal keynote speech in the future.